Hey everybody, welcome to the weekly news recap of the 5th to the 11th of August 2024. Today, we're going to take a look at some updates first. So, Arcane founder teases ambitious new RPG as Fallout meets Dishonored. So, this is news coming out of Wolfeye Studios. You may recall they're responsible for the game Weird West, which is a sort of immersive sim stealth cowboy type game. Pretty good on PC, not so great on console. The aiming is a bit wonky on console. It's an isometric thing. You have to aim with an analog controller, but everything's in real time. It doesn't really operate like a twin-stick shooter. It's kind of what you'd need to for that kind of game. Whereas on PC, it's considerably easier. Anyway, they're making a new game. These are people formerly of Arcane and a couple of other studios, but mostly Arcane. It's going to be a first-person RPG that mixes elements of Fallout and Dishonored in a wrapper of alt history sci-fi Americana. So, Fallout. Fallout by way of Dishonored, sure. Or Dishonored by way of Fallout, whatever way you want to think of it. Sounds pretty good. This is from Wolfeye boss and founder of Arcane, Raphael Colantonio. Didn't say that right. Colantonio, in a press release. So he would have founded Wolfeye a good while ago. This is before the layoffs that Xbox hit them with. Anyway, we are so happy to be able to officially confirm that our next game is actively in production and that it is a first-person action RPG. So it's very much in their wheelhouse. Dishonored, Prey. I don't think he was there for Deathloop. Or he might have been there for Deathloop and then left, right? No, I don't think so. I think he had left before Deathloop. Anyway. Fans of the past games I've been involved with, such as Dishonored and Prey, will feel at home, as well as fans of RPGs in general. And then we have kind of a tone setting thing here. So yeah, there's a fair bit of Fallout there. There's also a bit of Dishonored, to be fair, as well, with the kind of flying contraptions, these big long towers and stuff like that. And clearly they are going to be reusing a bit of their Wild West knowledge, because they do have... It does look like they're going to be setting it in a kind of Wild West looking area, even if it's going to be some kind of sci-fi thing. It's not clear if it's like a future post-apocalypse thing, but they are mentioning Fallout and what have you, so who knows. The game is still looking for a publisher, so we're probably going to still be a while off. They are taking sign-ups for a limited private beta, private alpha even. How you can take tests for an alpha, I don't know. An alpha in software is incomplete. Like, it's just pieces of the game. They haven't even been stuck together yet. A beta is when they've been stuck together. How you can test for an alpha, I don't know. And I don't just mean, like, levels being stuck together and, like, the levels themselves are complete or whatever. No, I mean, like, the shooting mechanic is divorced from the locomotion mechanic in an alpha. Like, they have not combined yet. Anyway, I guess it depends how far along in the alpha stage they are. Eventually they can call it a beta when everything is together. Anyway, it's not important. There'll be an early private alpha test some stage in early 2025, so if you're interested, check out their website. In an interview with Eurogamer, they were saying that it's going to be essentially a Fallout meets Dishonored type thing. Concept art shared is that video I just showed you there. Yeah, this is probably still a while off, but it's good to know that immersive sims didn't die with Arcane. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so this is a trailer for a game called Nocturne. This is from a... I'm not sure it's a solo dev. It's definitely an independent developer. I'm not sure if it's a solo developer or not. But anyway, it's kind of marrying these kind of old school RPG, top-down RPGs with a rhythm action combat. So it's really nice, really pretty pixel art. And then on top of it, combat is kind of Guitar Hero, sort of. There is a demo for it currently on Steam if you want to check it out yourselves. I haven't got around to it yet. It's downloaded, but I haven't got around to actually playing it yet. But it does seem interesting. You can, if you have crazy young people reflexes, you can play it on expert, I suppose. I'm not that good anymore. I'm not sure I was ever that good, but I'm definitely not that good anymore. Definitely have gotten slower, unfortunately. Anyway, the demo for it is on Steam. It is set for release some stage next year. Then we have the first Berserker Kazan. This was shown off Game Awards not last year, but the year before that, I think. And then we haven't really seen anything since. So this is the latest. I think this is a League of Legends thing. So Riot have been trying to broaden the League of Legends genre for a while, so pushing them into different games. There is a fighting game, League of Legends, on the way. There was a isometric RPG at one point. The Ruined King, I think, was them as well. I'm not sure. I'm not particularly au fait with the League of Legends stuff. But Kazan, first Berserker Kazan, or whatever way you want to go about it, is a Souls game. Where you play Kazan, presumably, who is Conan, but anime. This isn't necessarily a trailer. This is more like a gameplay thing. So I think it's like a very early 15 minutes of the game. Yeah, almost 15 minutes. That's very much a bonfire looking thing, I assume. That's what that is. Or not, maybe it's an actual weapon. Doubt it. Anyway, skip ahead. Combat is Souls with a bit more like anime action to it. I think there is a bit of Sekiro in the game if I remember the Game Awards trailer. It's been a while, and I only watched it the one time, so I'm still trying to kind of remember. How much you can actually do a build of the character, will it be so... the way in Souls you can go like a full strength, high poise character or whatever and just demolish anything in your way. Or go for a high dexterity character where you're dodging a lot and parrying, but you can do a lot of damage and so on. Since Kazan is a specific character type, I think, in League of Legends, he's one of the hero types. There's probably limited scope for how much you can alter the build. I imagine it's fairly set. Not unlike Sekiro. Sekiro didn't really have a build thing to it. It was just, you got more health. Really, that was kind of the only difference in Sekiro. Anyway, that's a fairly lengthy trailer. It is Souls. I'll just go that far to say it. It's a Souls-like. I don't know what kind of niceties they'll have to bring in, fans of League of Legends who've never played Souls games. That's always kind of the issue you run, or it's kind of the risk you run when you decide to branch out genre for a series that isn't really known for a particular genre. So like Final Fantasy 16 turned into a full real-time action game, whereas previously it was very much a turn-based type thing, and that did throw a lot of fans off. They don't particularly like it. I did, but I also like those kind of games, so it worked for me. Or turning games that are normally high action super speed thing into a tactics thing. It doesn't always work out, but see, it'll work out for them. Hey, Banana, how you getting on? Good to see you. Anyway, that's first Berserker Kazan. There's a full 15-minute gameplay thing there. If you are interested, it is out some stage next year. It's coming in 2025. We don't know when. Dead by Daylight is getting a new killer. Are they called killers or hunters? I don't play the game. No idea. I'm going to say killer. Killer and Survivor, Castlevania. I mean, yeah, this trailer looks cool and more Castlevania stuff, and that's hype. So the killer is Dracula, obviously. And the survivor is Trevor Belmont, I think. Why do they always go with Trevor? It's never Simon. It's always Trevor. It's never... Well, I guess this is why it's never this guy, because I can't remember his name. Richter. It's never Richter either. It's always Trevor. Anyway, this will be interesting to see just because I like Castlevania, but I don't play the game, so it's unlikely I'm going to play it. End of August. Dracula looks like he's always angry. He keeps asking for blood, and they keep giving him wine, and he's like, it's just... He goes through so much glassware because he's just throwing it on the ground all the time. You'd be angry too. It's so hard to get wine stains out of those carpets. Blood stains, he just, slurp it up. That'd be the end of it. But you can't do anything with the wine. Anyway, I just wanted to put this trailer in because as fun and interesting as it is to have these killers in Dead by Daylight, you're not really getting their own unique game anymore. A lot of the horror properties aren't getting them, Like, Pyramid Head was added a while ago. There hasn't been a new Silent Hill, a really good one, for a while. was going to say Nemesis, but that obviously came out at the same time as Resident Evil 3, so that I suppose gets a pass. But you have things like Ghostface from Scream, Pinhead from Hellraiser. Was there an Evil Dead? Was there actually an Evil Dead one? I don't think so. Point is, Jason was in there as well. Michael Myers from Halloween. They're not getting their own properties, is my point. They're just being kind of licensed out, and it's very easy and very cheap for the license holder and the licensee to get those kind of properties and put them in the game. And it's cool they're there. I wouldn't take that away from them, but it also means they're not getting their own game. And like, when was the last Castlevania? You know, it's like, it's time. Give me a Castlevania. Give me a good one. Now, they're working on Silent Hill, but we know nothing about what's going on with Castlevania. Anyway, that's my rant. I'll move on. Alright, getting PSVR 2 working on PC isn't as easy as it should be. So, this is, a reminder that if you own even if you own a PSVR 2 or not, the adapter for the PC is available now, starting August 8th. It was available for purchase. So this allows you to connect your PSVR 2 to your PC, and then that also allows you access to Steam's VR library. Substantially larger library than the PSVR 2. Up until now, it didn't work on PC, or rather, it did, but there were considerable caveats to get it working properly, and even then, it didn't really work great. So one issue is the PSVR 2 Sense controllers need a pretty modern Bluetooth transfer protocol right now. So they require Bluetooth 5, and vast majority of PCs are probably Bluetooth 4 point something, but they're probably not 5. And not only that, Bluetooth radios that are embedded into your PC are kind of broad spectrum. They're kind of looking for a lot of different devices. The PSVR 2 Sense thing kind of only looks for the Sense controller, and it knows how to find it, and then that pathway is really clean. It's not really the same on PC, so you're probably going to need to get a specific dongle if you want to do that. So some Bluetooth adapters may not be compatible with PlayStation VR 2 PC's adapter. Here's more information, and then it kind of gives you a couple that they've tested, and these all work fine. And a lot of them are standalone dongles. And then on top of that, there is a DisplayPort that is required that does not come with the PSVR 2 adapter. So there is still kind of, you're going to have to buy some extra shit, basically, if you want to get it to work. Now, you may not have the Bluetooth issue. May not. You know, you might have, if you have a really new PC, you may have a 5.0 Bluetooth radio, but chances are you don't. Chances are you don't. Anyway, keep that in mind. I have to keep that in mind myself, because I definitely don't have that. This PC's old as fuck. In fact, I don't think it can even run a VR game in the first place. Okay, so some slightly news that you probably already knew was happening in the first place. So PlayStation exclusive title Wild is no longer in active development, so it's hard to tell if this is just news, or if this is news or just like confirmation of what kind of already knew. Creative director Stephen Terhade has confirmed that PlayStation exclusive title Wild is no longer in active development and has seemingly been cancelled. So you may not recall this one, because this was announced back in 2014. It's been a while. And Wild was gonna be a kind of survival open world thing set in this sort of fantasy fae universe thing. I miss Wild. You're gonna miss Wild a lot now because it's not going out. This is gonna be by Rayman creator Michel Ancel. When he departed Ubisoft, he came in Wild Sheep Studio, founded, and this was going to be their first game. It's going to be an online survival adventure thing. There was a Gamescom trailer for it. It looked pretty cool. It did look pretty cool, but it's not happening. And probably the news of that probably should have taken that when Michel Ancel himself left in 2020. Not only did he leave the company, he left the entire games industry and went to focus on a wildlife sanctuary instead. And then shortly after that, there were some accusations of him being, a bit toxic to work at with Ubisoft. Ubisoft has a history of that kind of thing, so maybe that's not great. Didn't they say it was cancelled some years ago? There was rumors that it was, basically. In 2021 or so, there were rumors of cancellation for it, but they were still recruiting staff, and the recruitment, or sorry, the job listing was like working on Wild or working on an online survival, something. Um, so the game was a current project up until 2021. Then we didn't really hear anything about it after that, and now there's confirmation from studio head, creative director that nope, not working on it anymore. When they stopped working on it, probably 2021 would be my guess. Probably as soon as Michel Ancel left in 2020, I'd say they wound down production. They are working on something though, but they're not ready to talk about it yet. This game and Scalebound were games I was really looking forward to. Oh, you picked some bad one. You're cursed, Banana. Don't get hyped for a Soul Reaver remake, please. I want that one to actually come out. Scalebound. Scalebound was close for me to get an Xbox. I was really considering it as Platinum Games. I was really considering it. Then it got cancelled and I went, oh well. Anyway, Epic Games. So free Epic Game this week is actually a brand new release. Signy All Guns Blazing is a new shmup from Konami, of all people. Rather surprising. I think Konami are just the publisher. Yeah, they're only publishing it. So Signy is a shoot 'em up, the old versions of the shoot 'em up. So think like Galaga, Raiden, Ikaruga. So bullet hell, vertical shooter type thing. It looks pretty cool. I've seen mixed reviews on it. Just don't get excited for any game. Exactly. Never get excited, and you'll never be disappointed. You'll also never be hype for anything. Anyway, yeah, this looks pretty cool. I like shmups, again, and bullet hells and so on. I just don't really have the reflexes anymore to play them, which is unfortunate, because this one looks really cool. I went back to try to play Resogun there a while ago, and I am not as good as I used to be. Now, that could just be lack of practice, sure, but I don't know. It feels like I am genuinely slower. The other game is DNF Duel. That has been on... It's been on Epic before, I think, because it was already in my library. Action fighting at its extreme. Enter the new beat-em-up world of Arad as your favorite character from beloved Dungeon and Fighter franchise. So this is, again, a kind of spin-off. Dungeon and Fighter, I think, was like a mobile thing? I don't know. It's very anime. Anyway, it's now like a proper fighting game. I'm not sure what the Dungeon and Fight. I think it was like a... Was it like a Gauntlet clone? Is that the deal? I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Monthly games. So last week we had the monthly refresh for PlayStation Plus Essential, and now this week we have Xbox Game Pass's... whatever the fuck it's called now. What the new tier is called. Xbox Game Pass Console or something like that. So this is Wave 1. Creatures of Ava is a brand new release. We'll talk about it in the new releases section. Mafia, the Definitive Edition, which has been there before, which is... If I'm being uncharitable, and Melwin's not in the chat, so I can say it, it's a GTA clone, but not a good one. It's fine. The original game is better. Melwin has been playing through them on her channel, and yeah, the Definitive Edition isn't as good as the original, but certainly looks better and is more welcoming to new players who haven't played the original. And then, as was kind of rumored that was going to happen with the Activision acquisition, Crash Bandicoot The Insane Trilogy is also going to be coming to Game Pass. So if you somehow haven't gotten around to playing any of the Crash Bandicoot games, it's so weird. It's so weird having Crash being, for a long time, a PlayStation mascot, to now be on Game Pass. It's crazy world we live in. Anyway, Creatures of Ava is already available, Crash Bandicoot and the Insane Trilogy is already available, and Mafia Definitive Edition will be next week, Tuesday, I think. Okay. Those are some of the games you can play soon, but what if you wanted to play something right now? Well, we have Creatures of Ava, as I just mentioned, on the Game Pass. So Creatures of Ava is an indie game. It is kind of a mix between... It's like an environmental recovery thing, but then it's also got a bit of Pokemon to it. I think this trailer is entirely CG. We're probably not going to see much gameplay. But you come down on this planet and you're trying to sort of cleanse it of this environmental situation. And then at the same time, you're recruiting the creatures there who are obviously at risk to this kind of environmental situation. I think this is like literally the intro to the game. Oh, it says it at the top, intro cinematic. Okay, anyway, we're not going to see much gameplay there. It looked pretty interesting. I struggled to get the demo running on the Steam Deck, so not entirely sure how it plays, but it looked interesting to me, so I'm going to give this a shot at some point when I can find a platform it'll actually run on. One button bosses is exactly what it sounds like. It's a boss rush and you play the game with just one button. That's it. There's just the one button, and there's lots of different scenarios and gimmicks and so on to try to play the game. It's a very interesting concept. It's a very simple thing. You can play it on basically anything. I'm pretty sure it's on mobile as well. Why not? Sounds interesting, and from the previews and reviews I've seen, it's pretty tough. It's a pretty tough game. It has a little bit... It reminds me a little bit of Super Hexagon. Like, they don't play the same way at all. And Super Hexagon, I suppose you could say, is a 2-button game rather than a 1-button game. But it's a similar concept, you know, like it's very simple controls that can end up making a very complicated kind of bullet hell thing. Anyway, as far as I'm aware, it is PC only for now, but I think it is making its way to different platforms eventually. And then the last new release, surprise release during QuakeCon, Doom 1 and 2 have kind of been packaged together. They've had a bunch of mods added to them. There's a bunch of enhancements and so on. And on top of that, there is a built-in mod store if you wanted to go down that route as well, or mod library where you can kind of go check out a bunch of skins that people have made or rebuilds that people have made and so on. There's also some new episodes added. So there's a lot going on there for some Doom fans. And if you already own Doom 1 or 2 or both, this is a free update. So that's pretty cool. And there's online. Didn't know that. 43 deathmatch though, that's a lot. Doom deathmatches are just insane. Like, you're just dead immediately. It's just absolute chaos. Anyway, that's that. They also, you do have access to the Doom. No worries, Banana. You are able to play the. You are able to play the Doom mods that are maybe like questionable. So there's one that are like complete reskins. Like there's a Simpsons one. I think there's like an Aliens mod and so on. Very popular ones. But there's one that was politically an issue in that it essentially replaced a lot of the demons with conservative government in the UK. There's a Margaret Thatcher was the final boss and so on. You can play that if you want. It's there. How long it'll stay there, I don't know, but it's there right now. Anyway, unfortunately, though, it is now time to talk about the worst part of the video game industry, as soon as the GameDeveloper.com starts being weird. Okay, so Squidshot Games launches Patreon to follow through on Bow Path to Lotus plans. So this is fallout from the Humble Games. Hello Games is different. Hello Games are the No Man's Skies people. Humble Games, 2 weeks ago now, restructured, aka laid off everybody, and now the company is basically a shell. At the same time, they were meant to be publishing this game, and they did technically publish it. It is out, it is available for purchase, but then any kind of support afterwards, not happening, and the developers themselves do not have access to the back end to update the game. So this has been quite frustrating for the developers of this. It's been quite frustrating for developers of other games that similarly have an issue in that they don't own the back end rights, so that they can't update things, particularly on console. On PC, they tend to own that, and they can push out updates for that, but on PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, so anything that requires certification and so on, goes through the publisher, and since the publisher doesn't really exist anymore, they're not able to get out critical post-launch support, updates and console patches and that kind of thing. So they're relying on crowdfunding for the time being. So again, the publisher is gone. The publisher would funnel money to, well, not funnel isn't the right way to put it, but there would be an agreement between the publisher and the developer that you get a cut of the proceeds. Since they don't know what the fuck's going on with the publisher, it's debatable if the developer is even getting paid at this point. So in order to continue with that, they're going through the crowdfunding end of things. They have crowdfunded before. Bow Path of Teal Lotus was a Kickstarter game in the first place. We've explored every possible option to deliver the future content we had planned and decided to create a Patreon for those who would like to support us. So there's a bunch of different tiers. Some of them are, the basics, I just want to help tier, up into things like access to early demos and beta tests and that kind of thing. The developer acknowledged that it's a sad time in the industry and put no blame on Humble's now departed staff. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. I'm sure they would rather have their jobs still and be able to work on this. Anyway, so that's just part of the fallout of Ziff Davis just randomly deciding to kill off the publishing label and not tell anybody by the looks of things. Moving on. Okay, Roblox responds to platform ban in Turkey. Right, so earlier in the week, Turkey decided to just ban access entirely to Roblox. And the only reason they gave was to ensure the protection of our children due to the content that could lead to exploitation of children. This is obviously a translation. Not sure. Is it Turkish they speak? It's not something else? Anyway, is Turkish language? I don't know. It's showing my ignorance. I'm pretty sure it is. Anyway, they've been obliged to take necessary measures to ensure the protection of our children. Now, yes, won't somebody please think of the children is, a fairly tropey, cliche kind of thing. Problem is, Roblox do kind of have priors for this sort of thing, so the idea is that it's been primarily motivated by inappropriate sexual content on Roblox and the exploitation of children in that kind of way. That has been found. It is a user-generated platform. It's going to end up on there, and great many other user-generated things you can't necessarily control for it. You can just moderate for it. And Turkey have also kind of have priors for banning things. They banned Instagram under a similar situation because there's thoughts already all over Instagram. The issue is that Roblox themselves aren't exactly squeaky clean on this kind of thing. So Roblox themselves have claimed that we are ensuring the safety of our users is at the core of everything we do, except no, it isn't. It's just making obscene amounts of money is really at the core of everything you do. Back in 2021, there was a report from People Make Games that accused Roblox of exploiting children as young game developers. So this was the issue in that Roblox as a platform allows you to create your own games, not unlike kind of like Little Big Planet, similar idea. It's a bit more... Games are a little more simple, but there's a lot of them. There's a lot going on. And there's a platform currency, Robux, that you can pay the developer to play their game, or you can win through their games and so on and so forth. So there's incentives to, make your game appealing, but also easy. And, it's kind of low-hanging fruit kind of thing. Or to just make it exploitative so you can just get Robux for easy things. Anyway, the point is, they were pointing out that young game developers are incentivized to make their own games to earn Robux and so on, but they're being taken advantage of because there are companies set up to make those games specifically, and they are getting the lion's share of any money or any proceeds that come out of it. And then there's also a thing of that the conversion from Robux to actual money is really shit. Whereas the conversion from money to Robux is a lot better. Anyway, then earlier this year, Roblox studio head Svanza Corazza discussed the platform with Eurogamer and was talking about its reputation of being exploitative of young developers. And Roblox came back later to clarify that the company does not hire minors, but it was very clear to say that they don't make them employees, but they do still have minors making games and being paid, sort of, in Robux. There's an extremely gray area on whether this is acceptable or not. I'm coming down on the line of it's not. There just should be no money involved whatsoever. It should just be a case of you can make the game if you want for fun. There, just leave it at that. That's the way Little Big Planet did it, and it was fine. Anyway, who knows what's going on with that? Moving on. Okay, speaking of weird gaming practices, I suppose, UK Video Game Voice Actors Union proposes new minimum rates and protections against AI and abusive NDAs. So this is coming off the back of the SAG-AFTRA strike that is currently ongoing over in the US. They're talking about voice acting, motion capture performance capture, and so on, and how they feel that the big publishers are not listening to them. Pay has been stagnating, and there's this issue of them reusing their voice for training on AI, or reusing their performance to make a kind of library of animations and stuff like that. So they're striking over that because there's just no agreement. Anyway, on the UK side of thing, Equity is a similar union that handles effectively the UK side of this. And they have built up this best practice guidelines for voice actors, and more specifically employers of voice actors. So there's some changes to the minimum rates. These have been designed to address systemic low pay for performers. Other things like improving the voice actors' working conditions and stop companies using their voices and likenesses for generative AI and that kind of thing. And to kind of deal with their NDAs. So the NDA issue is kind of outlined here by Equity themselves, is that pay for UK performers has stagnated, despite games being a multi-billion-dollar industry with almost £200 million in tax breaks. It's in the UK. They are given money to make games, and that doesn't make its way down to the people who actually make the games. Performers don't have the protections they need in the unregulated world of AI. The misuse of NDAs is common, and health and safety is often lacking. So talking about the NDAs themselves and how kind of the legalese around them and how difficult they are to understand deliberately. The result is that performers often assume that they will be sued if they tell anyone anything about the production, even when they have been victims of or witnesses to a criminal offense. This is all the more shocking 5 years since the Harvey Weinstein scandal highlighted the appalling misuse of NDAs, shook the film industry, and ignited the Me Too movement. By now, we would have expected engagers, this is employers effectively, to be following best practice and not repeat past mistakes. So this is, again, just talking about how the NDAs need to be thrown away and better written. Some other things talking about it, though, is there's some kind of interesting quirks about voice acting as an industry kind of thrown up here. So you might be more like, voice actor working conditions, what's the deal with that? They just stand in a booth all day and talk. How can there be a problem? So the problem here is when you are doing voice acting work versus acting in general, when you're filming a scene and you need to like refilm the scene or reset or go back to the start or whatever, there's a break. There's a break while everybody gets back into position, and if there's been any visual effects or special effects or whatever, they all get reset, and the camera has to go back to its original position, and we have to make sure everybody's ready to go. That's a break. That's a break for your voice. You're not using it anymore. And then you go again and you do the thing. In voice acting work, it's okay from the top, and it's just straight away from the top, like, you know, they go straight into it, and there's no break. It sounds like there's no union mandated break either. So they're just going like, you know, time is money. Let's get this through. The other problem is what they're asking voice actors to do. So you have the typical just voice lines. It's pretty standard stuff. But if they have to do like really strenuous stuff with their voice, like scream, you know, or like rage roars and stuff, or really gravelly voices for a really long time, and they're not getting a break to rest their voice, that's going to cause strain over time. That's going to affect their ability to work later on down the line. They mightn't be able to do the gravelly voice anymore, or they mightn't be able to do the big yell and stuff like that. There's an interesting story from Liam O'Brien, who does the voice of... He's in Critical Role, but he did the voice of War in Darksiders. He's popped up in a lot of like supporting roles. He's a voice acting director himself. And this is probably why, I imagine, because of his experience on Azura's Wrath. So he played Azura in Azura's Wrath. And if you haven't played that game, it is basically yelling the game. Azura is a very angry guy, hence Azura's Wrath. And he scream yells a lot in rage. And there's one where he is yelling for what must be a solid minute. And Liam O'Brien was doing that in the voice booth, and they wanted to get it right, so he had to do it a couple of times. So he's yelling for minutes, prolonged at the top of his voice. I'm not sure if he like tore his vocal cord or strained it or whatever, but he was coughing up blood by the end of it. That's not good. You know, this is a question of whether he could even do that anymore going down the line. It's obviously going to affect his ability to work and so on and so forth. I imagine that's why he became a voice acting director, to either, one, still have work in the voice acting thing, but not have to scream yell, but also, you know, protect other people from having to go through that kind of thing. Performance capture. So this is when you're effectively acting, but you're in, like, you know, the dots and the motion capture suit and that kind of thing. That also has the stunts reset thing, but not as much. So again, when you're doing stunt work on a film set, they have to reset a lot of things. They got to move the camera back. They're going to do all that stuff I said beforehand. They don't have to do that in the performance capture volume, as they call it, the big area that you do the whole thing in. So you're doing stunts over and over and over with no break. This is kind of where they're going at with the union equity stuff. And then the rest of that article is just talking about the SAG-AFTRA strike. But some other kind of weird quirks. So minimum rates. So there are different rates for different types of voice lines. So there's a distinguishing thing here between what is specific, like, main story, non-optional, like, dialogue that your character's gonna have. You know, like the crux of the whole entire game. It's the plot. It's what, you know, cutscene dialogue stuff. And then there's, like, incidental things, like stuff a character might say as you're just walking past an element in the environment. You know, one of your party members says something. That's a lower rate. And then there's stuff like, you know, grunts and barks and whatever. If it's a fighting game, you know, and you punch the guy and he goes, ugh! Like, that, somebody's making that noise. Again, a lower rate. But then there's other things like crowd chatter and creature noises, which is just called walla voices, which is kind of interesting. So that's like general kind of hubbub you'll hear in the background walking through a crowd in the game. You know, you might hear the noise of a crowd. People are making that noise, like, it's not a generated thing. Yet, we'll get to that. That's also where the AI protections are coming in, because these are obviously ripe for generative AI exploitation, because they don't really sound like anything. You can kind of get away with just generative AI slop, because that also doesn't really sound like anything. You can kind of get away with it. But they're called walla voices because in radio broadcasting, when they'd have radio dramas, they don't really do that anymore. They would simulate the idea of you being in a crowd by just having a bunch of people just say walla walla really low over and over again. Walla 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 walla. And that would be, you know, intonated a little bit, and you would get the idea that you're in a crowd, apparently. Weird. Anyway, we'll see how that works out for them. This is just proposal for engagers, which would be employers. But I don't think it's actually been woven into an actual contract yet. So they're still kind of in the same position as SAG-AFTRA. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of Me Too movement and cancel, Dead Rising will no longer reward players for taking erotic in-game photos of women. So, right. Going back to the original Dead Rising, Frank West would improve his photography skill by taking types of pictures. So in Dead Rising, it's a zombie apocalypse situation. Or not apocalypse, I guess. It's kind of localized to just Las Vegas. So it's apocalypse for Las Vegas, but not really anywhere else. And the idea is you would take pictures of different situations, and you would get points based on them. So you could take things like gory or violent things, you know, like zombies attacking other humans, survivors, and you take a picture of that instead of helping them. You would get points for doing that. If you found like a kind of humorous looking thing, take a picture of that, you get additional points. And then you would get things for, you know, upskirts and cleavage and that kind of thing, which is gross. And like, it shouldn't have been in the game in the first place, but it was in the original game, and is still in the original game. You can get your hands on it, obviously. Capcom hasn't expanded on why exactly the feature was been removed, so you no longer get points. You can still take pictures, you just won't get points for it. So they haven't said why, but obviously the idea is that the game came out in 2006, and it was borderline acceptable at the time, arguably not acceptable, depending on where you were in the world. but it's very much not acceptable anymore. You know, tastes have changed over the years. It's a testament of the times and so on. So why am I bothering to talk about this? It's a remaster of the original game. And it's not a remake. And I kind of feel like it should be along the same lines as when they remaster old films that have, you know, racist issues, sexual harassment issues going on in the background that at the time were acceptable. Debatable how acceptable they were exactly, but they were deemed to be acceptable of the time. Or when they do like historical films or period pieces where we know at the time the period it is filmed in, there are racist and gender issues and so on going on. So they're in the film for like legitimacy and realism reasons. When you're remastering something, I kind of feel like it's important to keep what's there. I don't agree with you know, upskirts and cleavage shots and whatever. They shouldn't have been in the game in the first place, but they were in it. So I'm kind of split on it because I don't think it should be in the game because it's obviously gross and it's not, you know, it's not, you shouldn't be rewarding people for doing that kind of thing. But at the same time, it was in the game. It was a part of it. I think it could have the disclaimer that they have. You know, you see it in front of like a lot of old Disney films now, and it's like, disclaimer, you will encounter things in this film that were a product of their time. We agree that it's not acceptable, yada yada, and it's usually blackface. I kind of feel it kind of has that kind of treatment to it, but obviously Capcom are the owners of the IP and they can do what they want with it. Up to them. And at the end of the day, if we haven't lost anything of any real value, but I don't know. It feels like calling it a remake now or a remaster now is now not quite the same. Anyway, moving on. I don't know how to feel about that. Right. Speaking about things that maybe shouldn't have been made. I don't know. Anthem taught Bioware it should focus on what it's good at. Dragon Age Veilguard director says. So, in earth-shattering news, Anthem was a game Bioware shouldn't have made because they didn't know how to make it. I know. Hold in your gasps, everybody. Okay, so this is coming from John Epler, who is the current creative director on Dragon Age Veilguard, that making an online multiplayer game probably wasn't playing to Bioware's strengths. Now he is quick to kind of point out that I'm definitely proud of things that we did on Anthem because he doesn't want to piss off other people that he worked with, and probably more notably the executives who he works with. But anyway, we were building a game focused on something we were not necessarily as proficient at, and a lot of the people on this team came to Bioware to build a story-focused single-player RPG and not an online service piece of shit. Yeah, I know. No shit, Sherlock. It's like, we know this. I don't know why you're bothering to relitigate it, as people are trying to, like, very much make sure that Dragon Age is not going to become a live service thing. Very quick to point out that there's none of that in the game and so on. I just think it's like this was said at the time by developers in BioWare at the time that we are making a game we are not good at. This is not why people joined the company. It was not in the job listings, etc. It's not in their contract, I guess, whatever way to put it. But another way to look at it is that from the higher level up management type of thing, when they see game developer, that is your title, they don't care that they don't care or they don't know, or whatever way you want to look at it, that there's nuance to what that means. What kind of game? You know, what genre of game? What fucking camera angle you use? What, you know, engine it runs in, and so on. They just see game developer, go make game. Simple. It's the same as seeing just translator under somebody's name. Not what language do they translate into. No, translate. That's how dumb it is. You know, you'd see it in my own industry. It's a software developer or software engineer is my title, technically. But I couldn't just make any kind of software. Well, okay. I could, but it probably wouldn't be good. Much like Bioware and Anthem, it probably wouldn't be good, and it would take me a really long time to just make whatever versus stuff I already know how to make and have been trained how to make and have been making for a very long time, which I could make very quickly. I could make very well. It's the same kind of thing. Whereas the more abstract you are, the more away from the work you are, the less you know about it. And that's upper management. That's executive level, just going, hey, Destiny's making a lot of money. Let's make Destiny. And we're like, we don't know how to do that. We make single player action RPGs, guys. But I don't know what to tell you. And they're like, whatever, make Destiny. Moving on. Speaking of executives who don't know what they're talking about, Callisto Protocol. I actually thought this was going to be a different story. That's probably the next one. Callisto Protocol director claims Crafton insisted on releasing the game too soon. So this is coming from Glenn Schofield, who's no longer with Strike Back? Fuck was the name of the original studio? Striking Distance Studios. The Crafton had given him reason to believe that he'd have more time to complete the game, but then it went back on its word. I wanted about 3.5 more months to work on Callisto Protocol, Schofield said, and I was led to believe for about 3 or 4 months that was the way it was going to be. So in October of 2021, I was told, you're going to get the time, just don't have any regrets, which he took to mean, don't cut anything, just make the game you want to make. So I spent that Christmas vacation just making designs, coming up with new ideas and so on, getting people working on it. Then January rolls around and they say, no, it's coming, it's going to be out this year. You're not getting the extra time, basically. He was telling them, okay, but it's not going to get done by all that time, and it's going to cost you more money because I'm going to need more people, and we're going to have to work on it even longer, overtime, crunch. It will cost you more money to force a December release rather than an April or May release the year after. But they forced it in anyway. And then, of course, at that time, COVID was still going around. Even before that, really, it would have hit 2020, 2021. So lots of employees still getting sick because they were insisting on work in the office. Who exactly made that call? Was it Schofield or was it somebody else who made that call that they had to be working in the office? We don't know. But 200 people around the pandemic time, all working in close proximity, of course people were getting sick. And then even more than that, large numbers were deciding to leave because at the time, around pandemic time, everybody was hiring for ridiculous money. And we're seeing the fallout of that because now there's ridiculous layoffs at the same time. Sometimes our whole department for visual effects would be out with illness, or our whole animation department. Then on top of that, we had the Great Resignation. Almost 50 people quit because everybody's paying through the roof. And so people are leaving for 10 grand more. 2021 was the worst year of development of my life. So there's a lot of things that had to be cut. If he was going to go do it again, he would have put his foot down. I'm not shipping it. If you want the game to ship in December, you come and take over the studio, which would have been hilarious because I don't think the game would have gotten out at all. Anyway, that's what everybody should have done. Anyway, this time, speaking of clueless executives, the financial... Warner Brothers wants to license game properties as division revenue drops. Yeah, no shit. I can't imagine why revenue had dropped. Can't imagine what could have caused that. Anyway, so the status of Warner Bros. Discovery's video game division is once again in flux. The company is hoping to license out its big properties. So it's kind of important to point out that Warner Bros. Games didn't used to actually make games. They used to just license stuff. They used to be LucasArts. It's kind of a weird way to look at it, because LucasArts started making games, and then they stopped making games and just started licensing out Star Wars and Indiana Jones stuff to other developers, and then they went back to making their games again. Warner Brothers games were always, here's a license, go make our game for us. And that's the way they operated until they started acquiring developers like Rocksteady when they were working on Batman, Traveler's Tales. Not Traveler's Tales. Was it Traveler's Tales? Maybe it was. TT Games. Working on various Lego properties and stuff, and they brought them all in-house, and then they obviously had all those costs that mount up with bringing a developer in-house. They've also acquired the people who are making Multiversus. It's probably going to have a similar situation. Anyway, so during an earnings call, CEO shithead said outside studios could take advantage of franchises like Harry Potter and DC. Yeah, no shit. We have 11 studios here and a lot of IP. We need to get bigger. No, you don't. Do not need to get. You need to get smaller, and your salary needs to be cut to zero because you are shit at your job. You need to get smaller. The bloat is the problem. You don't need to acquire more studios. License it out. Just let a developer who wants to make the game, and not force a developer who does not want to make the game. Anyway, talking about it here, they have previously licensed their games out to third-party developers. So remember, Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, Rocksteady were not owned by Warner Brothers? I think they were owned by... Sorry, Arkham City, I think they were owned by Warner Brothers at that point. Arkham Asylum, I don't think they were when they made it. They licensed that out. And then Traveler's Tales has made a bunch of Lego games. Lego Harry Potter, Lego DC superheroes, and so on. But again, I don't think they're owned by them anymore. I think they've been spun off. And then later on in their earnings call, Suicide Squad led to a 41% decline in games revenue. Now that sounds bad, and it is bad. But it is important to point out that it's a decline in sales revenue versus Hogwarts Legacy, which would have been the year before that, and that did extremely well, like way, way better than it was supposed to. So while 41% drop is bad, you have to think it's a 41% drop from this incredible high they were already on. You know, it's not as bad as it sounds. It's still bad, but it's not as bad as it. Like, Suicide Squad on paper should have made a lot of money for them. Anyway, moving on. All right, last thing, because we got to have more layoffs because it's the video game industry in 2024. Meta reportedly shutters ready at dawn. So we're going to say reportedly because they haven't officially come out and said they're doing it, but they do have pretty verifiable memos and emails from inside the studio. So there's an internal memo sent to employees by VP of Oculus Studios, Geo Hunt, yesterday, reportedly saying that Ready at Dawn was closing immediately. A spokesperson told the publication the closure wasn't to save money, but to ensure Meta's VR division, Reality Labs stays on target with its new budget restrictions and can deliver better long-term impact. I don't see how that isn't saving money. Stay on target with your new budget. Is that not saving money? No? It's not about saving money, but it definitely is about saving money. But I'm not going to save that. Okay. So obviously this isn't great because it's another pretty good developer and a VR developer at that. Being shuttered. Ready at Dawn, you may be familiar with because you may have played their games previously. So in 2003, spin-off from Sony at the time, they were working on a lot of handheld games for the PSP and the PS Vita. So they worked on a Jack and Daxter spin-off, just Daxter, for the PSP, I think, and then there was a God of War spin-off. I think it was God of War Ascension, or God of War something Olympus was one of the handheld games. They worked on that, and then they left Sony and started working on VR things. They were working on the Lone Echo series, which is what you're seeing here in this picture, and they were pretty well received VR titles. So it's a pretty huge. It's a pretty huge loss for VR games in particular. Anyway, they left Sony 2017 to work on the Lone Echo series, and then they were acquired by Meta, or Facebook, in 2020, and now they're being laid off. I wonder if those things are related. Right, anyway, we'll leave Doom to play in the background. Anyway, as your news for the 5th to the 11th of August 2024. So some interesting updates. We've got something new coming out of Wolfeye Studios that may or may not be a Dishonored / Fallout type game. We've got that Souls-like League of Legends thing. First Berserker that looked pretty interesting. The PSVR 2 being a pain in the hole to set up. I mean, I was expecting it. I'm still disappointed, but I was kind of expecting it would be a nightmare because Sony has such copyright. They had like deliberately put copyright protection, not copyright protection, like proprietary protections on the PSVR 2. That's why it was difficult to get it working on the PC in the first place. So I'm not surprised that there was a problem because it was almost engineered to be a problem in the first place, and now they're sort of backporting it, which is, it was designed specifically to not work on a PC. I think you're going to have issues trying to get it to work on the PC. Anyway, Game Pass this month. I mean, if you haven't played any of the games, they're decent. Crash Bandicoot Trilogy will be pretty good. The Mafia Definitive Edition, if you haven't played the original game, it's a decent game to play. The original is better in some ways, worse in some other ways. The Definitive Edition will be good for, if you just want a cool mob game. It's a shooter with a bit of driving in it. It's decent. And then Creatures of Ava, we'll find out. The reviews for it are a bit mixed at the moment. New releases, the Doom 1 and 2 kind of surprise thing. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool update for it, coming out of QuakeCon. Again, as I say, Creatures of Ava, we'll see. And then one-button bosses just sounds like a really interesting concept. But I haven't seen many reviews for it, so I guess we'll see how that works out. Over on the industry bullshit side of things, I mean, Roblox being shitty, is anyone really surprised? No. I mean, just the stuff about these kind of postmortems with Anthem and Callisto Protocol. Anthem had a big postmortem report like a couple of years ago, and a lot of it was, yes, executives pushing for a game that the studio wasn't really able for or didn't have the experience to make and so on. But some of that has to be thrown at the feet of the creative directors as well behind that, because they also pushed for it. They were like, oh no, we can definitely make this. Come on, guys, we're Bioware. No. The team who wanted to work at Bioware were hired on this, to make Bioware games, single player or RPG things. Play to your strengths. Anyway, like some of it has to be thrown at their feet. Callisto Protocol, similarly, Schofield, as much as you could say that he wasn't given the additional time that he wanted and they were rushed and then there was crunch and so on, he has a reputation for like glorifying crunch work anyway. So how much of that is necessarily the executive's fault and how much of it is his, he's not exactly blameless. Significant chunk of it belongs with him too. Warner Brothers not knowing what to do with their games, who's surprised? What are they doing with the rest of their stuff? They don't know what they're doing with their films. They don't know what they're doing with their TV shows. They don't know what they're doing in general. And their CEO is still paid a ridiculous amount of money. Anyway, it's not a surprise that it's infecting the games side of things as well. Right, finish that there. What's happening over on the channel? So here is our big wall of games 2024. It hasn't changed in a while now, because I just haven't really been streaming much lately. Some of that is mental health issues, and then some of that is energy issues, and then you could probably say they're the same thing in some ways. I'm trying to get back to a regular streaming schedule, but I mentioned in yesterday's Final Fantasy stream that I might change up the schedule to give myself another day off, because I'm just not managing to keep all the days going. Anyway, off stream, I've been playing Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess still. I have now finished it. I really liked it. I really, really liked it. I thought it was a really cool game. There are some quality of life improvements I probably would have changed. There's some friction in the menus and stuff like that I think could benefit from some different update changes. But overall, I really like the game. It's cool getting like your different... Okay, so people who don't know the game, it's kind of a tower defense type thing, where you are playing the samurai who's trying to protect a shrine maiden as she purifies the pilgrimage path up the mountain. And at the same time, you are trying to purify the villages that you are coming across that are on the path, save the villagers who are in there, and then recruit them into your team. And they help you protect the Shrine Maiden against the forces of evil that come out at night. And you can recruit the villagers. They can become archers. They can become spearmen, axemen. One of the last jobs they get is ninja, which is pretty cool. You just have a team of ninja now with you. And they all have different abilities. Some of them have a very short range, but they hit very hard. Some of them have a very wide range, but they don't hit as hard, but they hit really quickly. I did think that some of the ranged roles eventually just become kind of useless after a while. So you start off with an archer. And the archers are pretty good at the beginning because they're one of the only guys who can hit flying enemies. But then eventually your character also gets a bow. And you can fire way faster than they can. And then on top of that, you get another role later on, marksman. They have a rifle. And while at the beginning, before they've been powered up, they hit really hard, but they fire really slow. So the archer still kind of has them on speed. But once the marksman is fully leveled up, they can fire almost as fast as the archer can. And they do more damage. So the archer does kind of become useless at that point. The only reason you would keep the archer around then is because they're cheaper to recruit. To convert a villager into an archer, it's a very small amount of money, currency. To convert a villager into a marksman is a little bit more. So that's kind of not great. The earlier jobs, they do kind of go away. They don't really have the staying power. The woodsman is the axe guy, and the spearman. You would think the spearman should preclude him, but not really. Because the spearman's kind of slow. Whereas the axe guy is a lot faster, and he's also cheaper. So, in one way, the earlier job is actually better than the later job in some ways. And then there are some jobs that are just so hyper-specific that you'll never know if you'll need them. So you don't bother upgrading them. Then when you find out you do need them, you're like, shit, they have no upgrades, they're going to be awful. So there's that kind of thing. You can't really change how you've upgraded people mid-level. You have to restart and do it from there. So that's where I'm talking about this kind of friction sort of thing. Redistributing points or whatever. I get why they've done it, because it would be a nightmare to implement it if you could just on the fly change abilities. And obviously they were making a game that is much simpler. Trying to get a new IP out from a publisher that is known for making really big blockbuster, brings out a shit ton of money IP. Monster Hunter makes them a lot of money. Resident Evil makes them a lot of money. Street Fighter makes them a lot of money. To convince Capcom to make something new and not make something that makes them a shit ton of money. They already know it makes them a shit ton of money. Why wouldn't we just keep making that? No, new thing. Let's make new thing. It's like, will it make us a lot of money? So that's kind of make that palatable. They obviously have to make a much simpler game. So it's not going to be a big blockbuster, Monster Hunter, shit ton of things to do, or Resident Evil, crazy production value, cutscenes, and so on. Is a simple game. It's a PS3 fucking very straightforward type of game, but I really liked it because it's got a really cool premise. It's very easy to understand what is required of you. Its progression system is really interesting. You can change up your roles outside of the game really easily. You're not locked into it. You've put all your points into one thing and you're like, I want to put the points into something else. You can just take them away and put them in there. Just easy. It's not a problem. There's no real story outside of Purify the Mountain. That's it. I do believe there is something additional if you play the game in New Game Plus. I think there is additional story, which would be a very Capcom thing to do. So I'll find that out, because I will go to jump into New Game Plus at some point. So I am going to attempt to platinum the game, because I quite like it. So we'll find out then, I guess. Anyway, that's Kinitsugami Path of the Goddess. That does mean I am currently looking for a game to play. Because I am going to take a break, but I am going to come back to it. Anyway, schedule for next week. So, kind of move things around. That's why there's only one Final Fantasy stream next week. One, I think we're close to the end. We're at what is probably the final boss, and if it's not the final boss, it's the penultimate boss. I do, however, have a shit ton of grinding to do for the secret bosses. Or the optional mega bosses, whatever way you want to put it. Not exactly secret. One of them is just plainly right there in the middle of the map. He's not exactly, he's right there. He's not a secret. I attempted to fight him yesterday on stream, got demolished. Like, it wasn't even a contest. I was dying straight away. And I am pretty powerful at this point. So it's going to take a while for me to get that ready for stream. So that's why I've put it at the end of the week. Resident Evil 5, we did manage to get a stream of that out last week, so we are now over in the Marshlands. People who've played the game before, this is when the game gets a little racist. And by a little, I mean, oh geez. Okay, anyway, we're at that part. And then System Shock, we haven't played any since the first stream, so we're still at that spot. Anyway, hoping I will get some of that done next week. There is potential for a D&D session next week as well, so one of these streams may not go ahead. I'm not sure what day it's going to be yet. We are looking to make it an in-person session, so that tends to take a little bit more time to prepare, so chances are it won't go ahead this week, and it might be a different week, but we'll find out. But that is the plan. Anyway, so Tuesday and Thursday, Resident Evil 5. Wednesday and Friday, System Shock remake, and then Saturday, Final Fantasy V, and we should finish it. I hope. We will at least finish the story. I may not beat the mega bosses, and we might have to just come back for it for the mega bosses, but we will at least finish off the story of Final Fantasy V on Saturday. And then Sunday, Weekly News Recap, which is what you're watching right now. Anyway, that is it from me for today. So thank you, Taquita Banana, for keeping me company, and anyone else who is lurking with him, them rather, in the background. It's also appreciated if you would like to do so. That's a weird way to put it. You can follow on Twitch or subscribe over on YouTube. Both those are the two free things, or you can do the paid things if you want. I suppose it's absolutely not required. You know, just consider it. Yeah, make my numbers go up. That's everybody likes number go up. Yeah. Anyway. And it won't be, it's not like a capitalism thing, so it's fine. I can grow. I can have perpetual eternal growth of numbers and people following. Anyway. I might be streaming later today. Final Fantasy. Maybe. I doubt it. If I am going to stream later today, it'll be Resi or System Shock. I'm not sure yet. I'm still considering it. Anyway. I am going to head off, though. Have a good rest of your day. If you're interested, joining the Discord, the link on YouTube is in the description, or if you're watching on Twitch, !Discord, we'll get you the invite link for that as well. You can hang out, and we'll talk about games I'm playing, or games I'm intending to play later on. You can suggest things, or we can just talk about the games industry in general, or talk about whatever. Dungeons & Dragons, I like that. You can talk about that there, too. Who knows? Or whatever you're into. Right. I'm going to head off. Have a good rest of your day. I might see you later, and if I don't, I'll see you on Tuesday for Resident Evil 5. Have a good one.